So thanks everyone for joining us today for this webinar, Building Conscious Organizations from Theory to Practice. My name is Dunia Zelou. I'm the founder of Humanaya, which is a purpose-driven company whose mission is to support conscious organizational transformation. So basically, at Humanaya, we have a vision of organizations that are aware of their reason of being and align with it through a three-steps model, the first one being organizations reconnecting with a reason of being, the second step being designing organizational model that serve the purpose and are aligned with that, and the third one being anchoring the purpose on an everyday basis through a company culture that is more soulful and human-centered in the sense of supporting people getting expressed in the whole dimension of human beings. We offer different services through a multidimensional, holistic approach that gather different expertise, such as consulting, executive coaching, as well as art and workshop to unleash the potential of collaborators through intuitive dance, through theater, and other ways of approaching holistically the human being and fulfillment. Today, I'm happy to host this first webinar of a long series to come, and I'm having as a guest Marco Antonio Robledo to talk about a major topic in our days for our century, which is how to build conscious organizations, and especially how to switch from the theoretical point of view to a practical one to anchor it within your own organization. Marco Antonio Robledo is professor of management. He did most of his research focusing on new management paradigms. He has been studying and working with more conscious, human, and socially responsible organizations. He will talk about it later, but he defines himself as a change agent who helps organizations and individuals in their development. He wrote this amazing book that you can see here, which is called 3D Management, an Integral Theory of Organization at the Forefront of Evolution. Thank you, Marco Antonio, for being with us today.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for sharing with us what you've been studying for more than 15 years, putting in your book, experimenting to share your knowledge, practice to support the organizations. Thanks to all participants also for being here with us today. We have an international audience, which is at the image of Humanaya's companies and us, as we have Marco Antonio based in Spain. I'm currently in Spain, but even like focused on France and Morocco. We have Basma as well, who is with us today from Islamabad, who will be managing and facilitating the chat with you. So we can't see you as participants in the webinar with the camera, but please take the opportunity to react on the chat, to say hi, where you come from. We're very pleased to meet you, and at the same time to raise your questions there. In terms of agenda, we'll dedicate 45 minutes to discussing with Marco about conscious organizations, his experience, the lessons that we can get from the pioneers organizations that have been through those shifts within their organizations. And then we'll allow 15 minutes to Q&A. So please feel free to raise your questions in the chat. And at the end, Basma will gather them and we will raise them to Marco Antonio. Thank you so much. And let's start.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's go. Do you have, maybe you can tell a few words about your work until today and what you've been producing, Marco, in complementary to what I said?
Yeah, sure. As you well said, I'm a professor of management at the University of the Balearic Islands. And I've always been interested in new paradigms of working and new organizational paradigms. You know, I started researching quality management when quality management was sort of the leading edge of organizing, you know, and managing, especially TQM. But then I got kind of, for me, it wasn't enough. I was expecting something more, and I dreamed that other kind of businesses were possible, you know. And then I started researching and I discovered some organizations that were doing things differently. Organizations like Senco, for example, which is a Brazilian industrial organization, very important in that country, whose CEO, Ricardo Sellet, has created a very radical kind of organization based on democracy, where every decisions were made on a participatory basis, and basically people were empowered to make their own decisions, and so on and so forth. And that gave me like a whole new thinking of what was possible for business to do. And as a result of that and my discovery of integral theory, I wrote a book in 2004 in Spanish, which was my proposal of how organizations should be managed. It was a theoretical book, and it was something that I think, or I thought at that time, that was going to be very restricted to a enlightened kind of minority, because I didn't think that that was going to be like the general case for a lot of organizations to make a move in such a radical direction. But nowadays, with all these years of experience and as well of practice of implementing these theories, and with the as well appearance of many other theories and models in the same direction, I think that this is like the management model of the future, for reasons we can talk about later. And that's what I've reflected in this new book that that you showed, you know.
Sure, yeah.
So that's,
Coming back into it with the experience and the proof of what has been implemented for those organizations. Maybe for our audience, can you tell a bit more what is the integral theories and also the other theories that exist in regards to those new models of management within organizations?
yeah, right. Well, it's true that in recent times, more and more theories and models have emerged as a reaction to the traditional management model. And well, there are theories like teal organizations, like holacracy, like sociocracy, like the fourth purpose enterprise, like conscious capitalism, like even the agile and lean methodologies. I think they are a move, probably less ambitious in that direction, but very important. And obviously, each of those models have its own characteristics, but they all agree on the need to reinvent management as we know it, because they think that it's no longer valid to face the challenges of the future. Take into account that the traditional management model is more than a century old, you know, it's very old. I'm not saying that it was wrong when it was invented, but I'm saying that its time has passed. It was designed for very stable environments and very predictable environments. And now the kind of environment that we're living in, experts call it the VUCA kind of environment, a variable, uncertain, changeable, highly changeable, and ambiguous kind of environment where change is the only constant. So obviously, a model designed for an stable environment is not valid in the times that we are living. I mean, we are now with the COVID crisis, which is the proof of how unstable our environment is. Organizations have had during all this time since COVID appeared a really hard time to predict the future, to see how would be the situation, what would be the situation next month, for example. So think about 1 year or something like that. It was thinking about science fiction, you know. And the people obviously also have changed a lot. I mean, the traditional system was devised in the Industrial Revolution, you know, for people that were basically illiterate workers coming from the countryside to work in factories. and they didn't have experience on how to work in those organizations. So it made perfect sense to have very bureaucratic and hierarchical systems. But nowadays we have a very different profile of people highly educated and highly prepared. So probably this hierarchical model is no good for them anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's part also of our history as humanity that the human being has been changing, evolving, our society as well. The knowledge we have about the human being with neuroscience and all explorations is different. And at the same time, it's more now how to actually adapt our systems, our way of working to who we are, the knowledge we have about ourselves, especially as I think that's all companies agree that we are the end of our paradigm of an era of some models of management. And main question now that's most of them are going through is first accepting the change, because changing is not evident, especially in the VUCA world where we don't know where we're going. So what steps? And I really do believe that even in terms for having a background in consulting on my side, the traditional methodologies in terms of consulting, how to support organization based on as-is and competitiveness, and how to make them evolve as per best practice is no longer actually here in terms of model, and it's a bit outdated as well, where we come back more on an inner part of human beings and organization as well as a systems of human being. And one of the main questions actually that is raised for executives, founder, and also HR teams is we know that we need to leave one model because it's no longer working, and people inside companies are actually suffering from it. We can see the number of burnouts and other disease, mental health issues that we are all facing. And I do believe there is a co-responsibility, including organization, for that. But the question they're asking is, okay, what do I change it for, and where do I go? And here where actually you suggest in your book a new approach to management that you call 3D management. Can you explain to us what it refers to, the 3D management?
Yeah. Okay. Well, 3D management is the pioneer and probably the most complete application of integral theory to management. Before you ask me about integral theory, now let me tell you what integral theory is, because I forgot that part of the question. Integral theory is a theory that has been mainly architected by Ken Wilber. Ken Wilber probably is the most important philosopher of our times. And integral theory, what it tries to do is to have as wide a perspective as possible from reality. You know, we live in a highly complex world, so we need to see the forest from the trees, you know, and sometimes the trees don't let us see the forest. So integral theory, the good thing about integral theory is that it offers a lot of tools to analyze reality from this complex reality from as many perspectives as possible, and to have a complete analysis of reality. And there's been plenty of applications of integral theory. So there is, I don't know, integral psychology, integral education, integral spirituality, integral economics, integral everything. And what I did was applying that model, which I thought it was very relevant, or that theory, to business. And so my model, and every integral model indeed, is a sort of, is a meta theory. A meta theory is a theory of theories. So it does something that is not very usual when you are creating a new theory. When you come up with a new theory, the standard way of coming forth with a new theory is, well, here is my theory, is the best ever, and it's, you know, has made obsolete, and it has proved wrong all the previous theories. Whereas in integral theory, what we try to do is to take the good part of everything that has been created before, and try to incorporate it, integrate it, and get it to a new level. So it's we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, as they say, you know. So in my theory, for example, can integrate all those theories with I mentioned before, and other traditional methodologies and theories into this unifying whole that is 3D management. But I would say that the main thesis of 3D management and why, and the reason of being called 3D management is that 3D management is a reaction against one of the main statements of traditional management that says that profit is the final objective of business, right? When you go to a management course, first that's what they tell you. The objective of business is maximization of profits. And if you ask entrepreneurs, for example, why did they create their businesses? They will tell you, obviously, one of the reasons is to make a living and to make money, and that's a very legitimate reason. But then they will tell you a number of other reasons that maybe they were more important, to make a contribution, to grow, to develop, to learn new things, to be more independent. There will be plenty of reasons behind this move into starting up a new business. And if we analyze business in an integral manner with these tools that integral theory offers, integral theory says that every complete analysis of reality, you need at least 3 to 4 dimensions. Every single philosopher or sage that has tried to create a model of integral model of reality, there are always 3 to 4 dimensions. Whereas in management, we have 1 dimension. It's very monolithic. The dimension of the economic dimension, the dimension of profit, and so that's only partially true. So it's wrong at the end of the day. So in what I did with this analysis is that I came up with 3 dimensions that I call the scientific dimension, the artistic dimension, and the ethical dimension. These are the 3 dimensions of management. Let me explain a bit each one of those dimensions. The scientific dimension is the techno-economic dimension of business. Therefore, its objective will be the maximization of economic value of the organization. For business, it will be the maximization of profit. For a non-profit organization, it will be at least the minimizing cost and so on. So the maximization of the economic value of the organization. And that's the hegemonic dimension in traditional management, and that's one of the dimensions in my model, a very important dimension, because I call it the dimension of the present. If you don't do that right, you will have to close down your business, because you won't make money. So it's absolutely necessary. But equally as people don't live to breathe or to eat, they live for higher purposes than that. But we absolutely need to breathe and to eat to live. Organizations as well need this fuel, which is money to survive. So it's a very important dimension. And this dimension, you make it possible through productivity and through quality and through good financial performance. But then there is a second dimension. The second dimension is the artistic dimension. The artistic dimension is the dimension of development. Its objective is the development of the organization, its products and services, and its people. So I call it the dimension of the future, because if you don't work in that dimension, or you have not well developed this dimension, at the end of the day, there will be other organizations that overcome you and make you obsolete, because you won't be innovative enough, and you will become sooner or later obsolete. So it's a dimension that is based on values like creativity, innovation, passion, fun, this kind of more emotional and aesthetic dimensions of businesses. And then there is the ethical dimension. If you see a graph of my model, normally I present it like a triangle, with the ethical dimension at the bottom of it. Yeah, and the ethical dimension is the moral dimension of business. It's a dimension that is based on values like transparency, social responsibility, sustainability, etc., etc. And the objective of this dimension will be the contribution to the common good, to make a better world. And these three dimensions are independent. They are based on, they have different rules to exist, and they have to be, in my thesis, more or less balanced. You know, sometimes maybe because you are not doing well financially, maybe you can give priority to money, but at the end of the day, you will have to balance all the different dimensions, you know. And for that, you need like a fourth dimension, like a meta dimension, a dimension that puts it all together. And I call it the spiritual dimension of management. And its purpose is to integrate all these three dimensions in a unified whole. So it's no longer the tyranny or the or that you have to choose between one dimension of the or the other, and you always, in the traditional management model, you have to choose the economic dimension and the others sacrifice them. Is that you have to juggle with them, you have to balance them. So how do you achieve that? Through a purpose of the organization, a higher purpose that integrates the objectives of all the different dimensions into a unified whole, and through community, you know, through building a sense of community within the organization that make every single person within the organization consider that aligned with the purpose of the organization, so everybody's rowing in the same direction, you know. And so the organization, more than a business, is a cause that you work for. So that's basically the 3D management model in a nutshell.
Thank you for sharing. And you work actually with companies to support their mission transformation, including in changing the way management works there. Can you tell us, when going from this theoretical part of management with 4 dimensions to implementing and supporting organizations, how does it work concretely for them?
Well, how does it work? What do you mean in terms of why? What are the benefits? What do you mean?
Yes, in terms of how people that want to change and evolve through a new model of management like yours, how do they actually see this new approach you have, and how does it work to make them implement it within their organizations?
Well, basically, normally the people that decide to challenge the traditional management model and adopt a totally new system, they do it for two main reasons. The more common one would be an internal reason. I mean, they are not satisfied with management or business as usual, and they want it doesn't fit their own values, and they want to try something that is more in accordance to their personalities and beliefs and values. That's probably the most common reason. But then there are other organizations that do it as a result of realizing that the traditional model is not good enough, is not agile enough, is not responsive enough, is not giving the best answers to satisfy their customers. So they decide to change into a new way of management that is less bureaucratic, less based on command and control, and so on and so forth.
In terms of difference between countries, because I feel like even Europe, North America, maybe inside Europe as well, yeah, and the organization are at the same stage of being ready to change, to actually switch from traditional models of management to more evolutive one, I would say. What's your perception and observations regarding this part?
Well, my experience, for example, in my book, I've gathered more than 60 examples of what I call vanguard organizations that for me are in the leading edge of transformation. And there is my conclusion is that these kind of changes are happening everywhere. I mean, there are some countries that maybe we have more examples or more organizations that are in this process of transformation. Probably the more advanced the country is in terms of level of consciousness, the more likely that these kind of organizations are to appear. But what I wanted to prove in this book, one of the things I wanted to prove is that this is happening everywhere, in every sector, in every different country, and regardless of size of the organization, and kind of business, and even education of the people within the organization. I have examples of organizations in every walk of life, and one of the things that the reasons why I think my book is making a contribution is that other books around this topic, normally they have focused very much in like North American organizations or in Anglo-Saxon organization, or maximum in companies from the north of Europe or something like that, and here I'm giving examples from a lot of Latin American organizations, Spanish organizations, organizations from many different countries. So I can see that this is happening everywhere, and every day I'm discovering new companies in every single country and every industry. So it's quite fascinating.
It is really fascinating that more and more actually seeing that's all in all the words, this trend of evolution and transforming, this awareness increases, and this need actually to switch the models is being implemented from in a reflection, I would say, to transformation. Can you share with us some example actually of companies and even those that have been pioneers and evolving that towards those kind of models?
Yeah. Well, I already talked about one of the true pioneers, that is Senco, this Brazilian organization. Then there are very important companies that are in this direction, companies that are very well known, like Netflix or Spotify, are very advanced in their agile methodologies, and so they give a lot of power to the employees, and a lot of freedom to the employees. But if I had to choose some organizations, maybe I would choose one of the most famous TL organizations called Buurtzorg. Buurtzorg is a Dutch company that is in the healthcare sector, and is a leader in his country, and is being chosen by the Dutch government as a benchmark to be imitated by all the organizations in its industry, to move into that direction. And it's an organization that gives absolute priority to the patient, and that is structured with self-management group. There are no bosses at all. Then I could mention as well a Spanish company that is called NER Group, which is a very fascinating example. The NER Group is actually not a company; it's a network of organizations that get together around a single philosophy that is called the new style of relationships. That's what NER means. NER. It means in Spanish new style of relationships. So this new style of relationships is about being absolutely transparent, being a very highly democratic organization with self-managing teams, as well being very equitable and unfair in the salary. So the difference between the person who has the highest salary and the person who has the lower salary in the organization cannot be higher than 2.5. So you cannot fire any person within the organization. Many of these organizations, or some of these organizations that have joined the NER group, did it because they were in a rough financial situation. And one of the premises is that you cannot fire anyone. So that's a very progressive kind of culture and very innovative kind of management model, and that is working extremely well, And there are more than 50 companies that are now part of the NER group, so it's huge,
And what for those companies that actually have been pioneers and started the first ones switching their models into self-management, into integral businesses, conscious organizations, what were the benefits that they got from switching into those new organizational models?
Well, as I said, the ultimate reason for these organizations to get into this new way of working and managing normally is not being more profitable or being more competitive. They do it because they have the deep conviction that is the right thing to do. But having said that, there is a lot of studies, or there are some studies that have analyzed what are the benefits of introducing these new management models. And for example, in terms of financial performance, there are studies that prove that these companies are 10 times as profitable, and they will be like a much better investment for you if you invested today €1 in one of these organizations and €1 in a company that is let's say in the Standard & Poor's 500, so in the stock market, you will get 10 times as much money from these vanguard organizations than with the traditional ones. And it's not surprising for me, because one of the effects of implementing these models is that you're going to get a much more customer loyalty. For example, one of the companies I've implemented my 3D management model is a chain of cinemas. It's a movie theater here in Mallorca, and it's a movie theater that is only showing kind of independent movies and in original version. So it's a membership cinema. You can go there, and pay your ticket and see a movie, but normally the people are members of the cinema, so they pay a yearly rate. And many of the members of this cinema, they come and tell me, I never go to a movie that is not played in this cinema. If it is not shown in this cinema, it's called Cine Ciutat, the cinema, I don't see it. I wait until they show it in filming or in HBO or in Netflix or wherever. But I don't go to the competition, because they think that this cinema is their own, because it's their cinema, so, and they feel it so profoundly that, they are not willing to go to the competition, And as well, in terms of employee engagement, and there is a very frightening statistic, probably the most important study about employee engagement is called Gallup. It's done by Gallup organization. It's called Gallup's State of the Workplace Report. And this study shows, it's done in a yearly basis in more than 18 countries, and I think they've interviewed more than 15 million employees, so it's a huge sample. And every year the results are basically the same. And they basically say that 80% of the people are disengaged with their works. You know, this is a huge level of disengagement. You know, that's bankruptcy. You know, and if we analyze the level of engagement of these other kind of organizations that are doing trying other ways of working, the level of engagement of the employees is 70%. 70% of the employees are engaged. That makes a huge difference, you know, because in one case there is a lot of people rowing as hard as they can to make the organization progress, and whereas in the other case, when the boss is not looking, they row in a different direction, they stop rowing, or they start punching holes in the boat, you know. So that makes a difference, you know.
Yeah,
I think
that
those are the main benefits.
Yes, thanks for sharing, because yeah, I had a look to this actually study from Gallup, and on top of that, those level of disengagement have a cost for organizations and for the states as well. So thanks for sharing the example of about loyalty with Cine Ciudad, because I think it's a good one, actually, saying that people that go to this brand, to these organizations, it's actually changes even the relationship, you know, just no more for buying the service. It's more because actually you're in line with the values, with the mission, and it goes deeper. And I think it's actually, this is working with clients, but that's also working with employees and partners of the organization, especially as well. Talent retention is also one of the main challenges that organizations have to face today, especially with new generations for whom the needs are totally different from the oldest generations that are more looking for purpose at work, for a place to emotions, for joy, and that makes actually the organization need to go deeper to also understand this change of paradigm amongst generation that will come about it a bit later, and offer new ways. So thank you so much for coming back, especially as mentioning those financial returns of adopting such models that might take longer to get and to see in terms of visibility. However, that are here, and that's also reducing direct costs, because one of my observations, mainly more in Europe, is that many executives and founders are kind of struggling between, sure, I'm in line and I want to change my company, the organizations, having more 10 years, 20 years visions, and just adapting the model to where I'm going. And at the same time, struggling with pragmatically, how do I do for this year? I need to make money, I need to make performance. And actually, they're just like struggling between both, and having of course, those short-term objectives sometimes prevent them from going further. And I do believe that due to the COVID-19 as well, the terms of resilience and actually the organization that had a more long-term vision and that were robust and had solid foundations, like forests are based on the foundation of the trees to be able to grow, we're kind of more resisting to the crisis. And I think it's really important actually to recall that. And yeah, what's your opinion on, for you, according to your experience, between those short-term needs and those long-term change evolution requirements for organizations?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you just said. I mean, in my opinion, the difference between long term and short term is disappearing. I mean, the long term is too far away to think about because things are changing too quickly. So when I studied business, when I was a student, they told me, I mean, it was very clear cut. I mean, the short term is less than a year, medium term is from 1 year to 3 years, long term is 5 years, 10 years, you know. And you could do things in all these three different dimensions. You could have very long-term strategic kind of planning and so on. Nowadays, I mean, 1 month, as we said before, during the COVID, 1 month was long-term, thinking long-term, was thinking about something that I cannot control. I don't know what's going to be the government regulations or the state of the pandemic in 1 month. So why should I think about it? I mean, there's no point about making strategic plans about that. So the difference between the long and the short term is disappearing, and we can only think about short term. But you have to think about the future, obviously, and you have to have very solid foundations. And what you can do is to have a strong purpose that really identifies who you are and who you want to be in the future, to have a vision of the future, and to have very solid values that help you in your decision. And then from that, you can only sense and respond to the challenges of the environment, you know. So you are no longer like a huge tree, very solid, and you are like a junk, you know, which is waving with the sun, you know, with the wind, sorry, which is a much more resilient strategy for our times, you know. And as well, probably the values that you are going to need in the future are going to be different. I mean, we were talking about this commitment of the customer and the employees as well. And as well, I think that in the future, collaboration is going to be much more of a need for the organizations. If the older times were about competition, you know, the future times are going to be about collaboration, you know. Competition probably is not the best strategy of the future, trying to crush the competition and trying to be the best. And I mean, it makes more sense to collaborate with others because you will get farther like that. I love, for example, an example that Gunther Pauli, the creator of the blue economy, always gives. He talks about the Amazon forest, and he says, imagine that in the Amazon forest there was a tree that functioned as most of our organization wanting to be the tallest tree and wanted to like overcome all the others and dominate over all the others. So it's like obscuring with all its leaves and its height all the other trees and herbs in the Amazon. At the end of the day, the others would die, and he wouldn't find a proper soil to keep growing. So it doesn't make sense. He would this tree would die at the end of the day, you know. So we the future times, I mean, I think are asking more for collaboration than for competition.
I totally agree. And I think this raises also some kind of deepest questioning about the indicators we're using as part of measuring the performance of organizations, the well-being, which I think are also reconsidered, because when you go back to purpose, the word of competitiveness actually is no longer applied, because as each person, each system has a reason inside the inner one and a place here, well, the interactions with the other systems totally changes, and that's where you don't try actually to look like the others. And that's why I was saying as well that
I mean,
traditional.
Sorry to interrupt, but a very good example about that is this organization I mentioned before, Buurtzorg, that I said that it was placed as a benchmark by the Dutch government for the other organizations to follow its example. Well, in the old model, Buurtzorg would say, well, this is my competitive advantage, so let the others try on their own, and I'm not going to tell them anything of my secret. But what Buurtzorg does is that they give seminars for free for their competition to adapt their model, because their purpose is to improve the health of the people in the Dutch country. And they know that they are going to achieve that purpose quicker by helping other competing organizations, you know, than by hiding this information for them, you know. So the difference between purpose, purpose, as you well said, erase the concept of competition. If these other organizations are in the same direction as yours, they are collaborators, they are not competitors.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for actually sharing this example, which is very relevant actually to illustrate that. And I do believe, like you, that we're going to those kind of models and coming back to different things and different ways of perceiving as well the business, the work, and as you mentioned, the collaboration, how we co-create together as human beings while serving our purpose individually, collectively, and through our organizations and system. Thank you for that. For an organizations that wants to make change and adopt a new vanguard model, what are the main steps to go through concretely?
Okay, concretely. Well, the problem is that you want to change your philosophy. So it's not a clear-cut process, So it will depend in every single organization where they are and where do they want to be. But I can give you some relevant steps that you should follow. First of all, I think it's absolutely necessary to diagnose your current situation. You need to ask yourself, if you are the leader of the organization, if you yourself are ready for this huge change. Are you willing to surrender your power to the new system? Because that's probably one of the things you would have to do. Secondly, is the organization mature enough for this change? Yeah. And then once you have a yes for these two questions, the next you start implementing things. You have to think about what is the most appropriate structure for your organization. And probably in most of the cases, I would advocate for a kind of self-managing system where you empower the people to make their own decisions in their own field, and then you have to make the necessary changes in your culture and create the new rules for your organization. Meaning, how do you make decisions? How do you hire employees? How do you manage conflict, and so on and so forth? So it's going to depend on what's the situation of every single organization, but those would be landmarks that you have to take into account in your process of transformation for sure.
Thank you so much. And those models that we're sharing, actually, they can be also done in different steps for an organization's transformation, depending on actually the step where the organization is and wants to go. And of course, like there are experts also like you and our company as well that are here to support for those transformations, to make them go smoothly on different dimensions and to support the leaders within the organizations as well as the systems and the people to get into that for a more robust model that provides long-term and sustainable growth, which actually it's what we're talking about here, rather than just like those models that have been actually today in as our referential and that are just
Absolutely.
like being
And one thing I would like to share with our audience that I think is very important is that at this stage that we are now, obviously this is something very new. So we are pioneers, like trying to discover new grounds, but we've made a lot of progress. So we don't have to an organization that wants to get into this doesn't have to. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. There are proven methodologies, there are proven systems, there are proven models that will help you to implement and to make a smooth landing into this new territory. And so it's not as difficult as it used to be before. Still, we are going into a lot of unknown territory, and we are like testing a lot of things. but there are models that can help you, and there are experts like you, like me, like many others that can well help you in those processes. So that's a relief because it's one of the main barriers. How do I do it? I love to do it. I mean, self-managing sounds wonderful, but how do I do it? I mean, you can implement holacracy or sociocracy. I mean, and that's a governance system for doing that tell you how to do it. You know.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think, of course, it's really important to take into account all those parameters, because going through changes, through transformations, can raise other things, and it's not always easy. But there are people experts in that, and there are models and proven record regarding that to go through it and prepare our future world as well, because that's what we're talking about at the end. Before going to question and answer, I would like to ask you a last question regarding you, Marco Antonio, and your experience with the companies you've been working, with the studies you've been through, with the books you've been writing. As of today, following the pandemic, what is your vision of the future of work in 10 years?
Okay. I said that it was impossible to talk about 10 years time, but let me make a guess. Okay.
A little bit.
Yeah, I will try. When I wrote my first book, that was back in 2004. Long time ago. And I said that when I wrote this book, I thought that this new way of managing, this new paradigm that I was like proposing in symphony with other people, it's not that I made up myself only, was something that for a very select minority. Nowadays, I think this is going to be the way organizations are going to be managed in the future. In 10 years time, I dare to say that it's going to be much, if not the dominant way of managing in many ways, a very serious alternative to the traditional management system. And why do I say that? Because I think that, well, I said it before, that the old model has become too incompetent and too dysfunctional. So business as usual, I think, is no longer valid. I mean, we are in the middle of a global health crisis. We are at the edge of ecological disaster, unfortunately. So do we need more resources than that to change our ways? We need to change. I mean, the way we've been organizing society, the way we are living is not sustainable. And businesses are the most powerful institution of all times. It's more powerful than monarchy, it's more powerful than religions, because it dictates everything about us. How do we dress? What do we read? What do we eat? So it controls every single aspect of our lives. And I think that businesses have to become more conscious and have to grow from this kind of egoistic attitude that is shown traditionally, where only my profit matters, to a more altruistic way of doing business. Because otherwise, I think we are doomed as a species. We have to change our ways, and businesses should be in the business of building a better world.
Thank you so much for this last sentence, the business of building a better world. That's what makes us, I think, be all here today. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marco Antonio, for sharing with us all those elements. I would suggest that we jump into the questions that have been raised by our participants. Thanks to our participants for raising those in the chat. So I'll try to go to some of them. I think we'll not have time to all of them. Just the first questions from Camille regarding the webinar. It's recorded. Yeah, we send an email to all the people who registered here with the link to the recording, and we'll put it on Umanaya's website as well. Then we have questions from Rupin. That is, how do you prevent burnout under the new organization model?
Okay. One of the reasons of burnout has been proved that is due of lack of involvement, lack of commitment, lack of motivation with what you are doing. So if you are working in an organization whose values are aligned with your values, and where you go to work enthusiastically, you are not going to have so many reasons of burnout. Obviously, another reason of burnout is working too much, too hard, being a workaholic, and in that case, obviously, there is your being able yourself to detect that. It's not so much about the organization, but as well the amount of freedoms that these organizations give to people, it's much higher. So you are much more able to self-regulate and to balance your personal and professional life. For example, there are organizations like Netflix where you decide how many hours you work a day. And nobody's going to tell you if in 3 hours I do all my work, why should I be there 8 hours? If I fulfill my objectives in 3 hours, if I'm productive enough. So it's your choice how many hours do you work. They have total freedom for that. They have total freedom to structure, unless you have like shifts and you have to respect your shifts if you are working in front of the public, for example. But if you are a white collar worker, for example, maybe let's say that I like to work for 9 months, 10 hours a day, and then take 3 months holidays because I want to go to a different country and spend 3 months away traveling around the world. There are people that do that in these kind of organizations because they choose their timetables, they choose their holidays, and the only thing that you are responsible for is fulfill your objectives. So this maneuverability that you have obviously gives you a much better state of mind in general, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I suggest that we take 5 minutes extra to address other questions. Are you fine with that?
Yeah.
Great,
no
thank
problem.
you. One of the questions we got from Mishka is regarding the hiring process. How does it look like for this company who have new models?
Well, if I had to hire for one of those companies, I will hire more based on values than based on knowledge. I mean, knowledge is something that people can acquire, whereas it's much more difficult that you change your values. If one of my values, for example, is that I need creative people, it's going to be much more difficult to make somebody creative than to hire somebody who believes himself or herself as being creative. So you are if you want to hire people that are collaborative because you want to create this kind of environment, you have to look in your selection process for people that deep in themselves think they are or believe in collaboration rather than competition, for example. So I will hire based on values as a first element. Then obviously I will look if they have the required technical knowledge and whatever, but I would highly emphasize values as well.
Thank you so
because
much for
not everyone is ready to work in this kind of environment, for example, so I would try people that are ready for this kind of environment. I mean, even if sometimes declare it. In one organization we hire that I was working with, they hire somebody that they thought was perfect for the job in terms of knowledge, and in terms of that she declared that she loved this model that they were applying of self-managing and so on. And at the end of the day, this person resigned because she said, in my mind, I thought that was the ideal model, but then I've been too many years working and being dependent from a boss, and I feel more comfortable with this old system. She wasn't able to make the mental transition to the new system. So it's better that you look for people who are gonna feature for this kind of circumstances, have the degree of autonomy and decision making and so on. So you have to look for certain values and a certain level of consciousness, if I can add.
Yeah, I think that's important. Like, even when we go through energetical matches about people, I think that we're observing that the criteria of hiring are changing, and like the soft skills and also the visions and the purpose are more taken into account for most like new model based organizations than it used to be before, where it was more based on competencies. I think that's the past years also showed that there is a limit to using only those criteria in terms of hiring, and also in terms of matching between people you hire for your organization and actually the spirit of your organizations and what it rates behind. So just to complete. Thank you so much for that. Let's take maybe one last questions. Let's take it from Mary, this one. How would you ensure that this organizational transformations doesn't become just a corporate branding thing? I think that's like on employees' point of view, many people can see that and those transformations and getting back to purpose as a bit like greenwashing. So how to make sure that actually it's not, it comes from inside and it's really deep and sustainable one?
Well, that's one. It's a very good question. How do you make sure? You mean the employees or the leaders or who? Because sometimes it's the leaders that implement that, and they don't believe in it. At the end of the day, they do it because it's something that other organizations are doing, so they don't feel deeply committed, or they didn't give it enough thought. So that's one of the real dangers. Obviously, this, for example, you were talking about greenwashing. You see it very medially, because you see that it's all marketing and it's all something for showing the others that I want this certificate, or I want. So as a consultant myself, is one of the first thing I look out for, making a good interview with the people that want to implement that, really examining in depth what are the motivations, if I can perceive that they deeply believe in that, if they are willing to take all what it takes, to implement those things, and it's not something that okay, sounds nice, sounds sexy, sounds like it's gonna give me a competitive edge, or it's nice to show that I have this certificate or whatever. That doesn't work, obviously. It's not what we are looking for.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that at the end, we feel it, like where it comes from, and it's deep or not that much. Well, I think we'll stop that. We have other questions, but we need to, I mean, this is a very fascinating subject, and thanks Marco, actually, for all you sharing. Well, thank you for being with us today. Thanks to all participants for being with us as well. We will share to you the link to the replay. And if you have any questions or want to deep dive on the subject, you can contact Marco, Antonio, or myself. Basma shared with you on the chat the links towards our companies, so please feel free to reach out. Is there anything you want to share before we close?
No, I'm just saying that it was an immense pleasure to be here with you. And I hope that this session has been useful for you and really give you some food for thought. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks to you. Thanks to everyone, and hope to see you soon for another webinar. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.